The first questioner today will be Representative Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Treasurer. I wanted to focus a little bit on the governor's budget proposal, and specifically the farm show leaseback, I guess you would call it, which is $200 million that the Commonwealth would receive, and in return lease back the farm show. And we've heard different numbers, anywhere from $11 to $11.9 million a year would be our rental or lease costs. First off, is there any type of agreement already in place? And if there is, what is the effective interest rate that we're looking at?
Thank you, Representative. It's an important question. It's one that we're asking as well, and the short answer is we do not have more details than you do. We hope to, obviously, and it's a transaction that, if it in fact proceeds as a lease-back lease, would come before us in our capacity on the Board of Public Grounds and Buildings, where Treasury has a role. Historically, our view of our role on that board has been in part to ask questions such as you've asked about any lease that comes before us, especially something of such significance. Whether there was a robust process, whether there are appropriate terms, whether the Commonwealth is getting the appropriate value.
So as treasurer then, do you have I assume you would started to work on this already. Do you have some type of idea of what you would like to see the interest rate to be? Or?
Well, I don't want to dictate lease terms.
Okay.
I will tell you we are awaiting further detail on this, and we have in fact those questions.
And to follow up where you just were, I assume then there's been no buyer or lessor type of person identified yet.
Not to us, certainly.
And any type of structured RFP or anything like that?
Not that we know of.
Would there be one? Will there be one?
I would assume that there, to determine value and terms, that there would be some sort of a process. If there's not some sort of a process around that, it raises questions about determining whether the values are appropriate. But I do not know of any further details other than what we've read in the proposal and what you've heard.
And certainly we all would like those details as well. Would you classify this as prudent fiscal management?
Representative, I'm in the happy position of, unlike you, sort of being able to comment on these without doing the hard work of trying to bridge the gap. The question it raises is this is a kind of debt, and is the use of this sort of debt a good idea to bridge our gap, as opposed to, are we getting kind of long-term value for the debt? Having said that, I understand and appreciate the position that everyone is in trying to find ways to make a difficult set of numbers work without asking more of the taxpayers. So really the prudence of this comes down to those details, and whether, first of all, whether this is a leaseback or it's something else, and second, what in fact those terms are and what the rationale is for the particulars of the arrangement. So you can mark me down as having questions about this as well.
The devil's in the details.
Yes.
Which I think we all share that opinion as well.
And I will, if I may, just in reviewing our sort of behavior on the Board of Public Grounds and Buildings when it comes to leases, there are numerous instances where we've rejected something or pushed something back or asked further questions that have resulted in significant changes in savings. So we take our responsibility on that board quite seriously. We don't view ourselves as a rubber stamp, and that would especially be the case in a transaction this size. The other thing that I would say about this as to prudence is, if this proceeds, we want to be sure that in fact it's got all the authorizations that it would need from this body, because the last thing that we want to happen is to end up in a position where we are left without the appropriate amount of coverage, and the proceeds of this are for debt service, and the proceeds of this are shown as a sort of subline there. So we'd want some assurance this in fact has the approvals it needs before it gets there.
And my last question, would you classify this as like a one-time gimmick type of thing, or are you looking at other assets that we could potentially do the similar situation with?
Well, we're not looking at other assets, and I think any fair characterization of this is it is one time, or at least it's once every 30 years. Again, whether it's prudent goes to what the other alternatives are, what the terms are, and what's sort of fundamentally driving the decision.
Thank you.